Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. With the situation between Nigeria and South Africa threatening to spiral out of control in the wake of xenophobic attacks on Nigerians living in the southern African country, reprisal attacks are clearly building here at home. This much became evident here in Lagos yesterday when a number of South African-owned businesses came under attack by some protesters. President Buhari has dispatched a special envoy to Johannesburg in search of answers and an enduring solution. But given the tardiness with which this same issue has been treated before now by his administration, would Nigerians be satisfied with just sending an emissary? We are now about to seek our own answers from Femi Adesina, Special Advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on Media and Publicity, who is in our Abuja studio. He will also be addressing other matters affecting the presidency at this time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Femi.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming to the morning show. Femi, good to see you. Well, first, let me start by congratulating you on your reappointment. It's a tough job. I hope sometimes you find time to rest. Congratulations. But straight to business.
Yeah.
Now,
thank you.
the president has sent an envoy to South Africa, and the High Commissioner of South Africa to Nigeria and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, they held a press conference yesterday over this issue of xenophobic attacks. But beyond some of the things you yourself stated in the press statement that you issued, are there some other steps that President Buhari is taking that we do not know yet and that you would like to tell us? For example, has he called, say, President Ramaphosa? Does he plan to address Nigeria? Since it appears that tempers are really going up, we just heard now that in Ibadan, some South African businesses are also being attacked.
Yeah, thank you. In Japan last week, President Buhari and President Ramaphosa met, and they had a good discussion on these matters, but that was before the recent turn of events. It's not unlikely that they are in touch, but I also know that a trip is scheduled to South Africa by the president in a couple of weeks. Like I said, it's not impossible that they are talking behind the scenes, but then Nigeria is up and doing about this. You asked whether there are some other things in plan. Of course, there will always be, but one step at a time. There were 3 briefs in the statement we issued, which the envoy would discuss with the South African president. 1, that Nigeria was unhappy. 2, that they must guarantee the protection of Nigerians in South Africa. And then 3, that President Buhari is personally displeased with what is happening. So when he discusses those 3 matters with the South African president and he gives a report, next steps could follow.
Now, your statement did not refer to the victims or address Nigerians living in fear in South Africa, and there was no subsequent statement. Is this a deliberate omission? Does the presidency have no words for these people at this time?
No, there was another statement from the Minister of Information last night, appealing for calm, suing for peace, and trying to mollify all those who have been affected by these developments.
But not from the president? There hasn't been a statement directly from the president?
The information minister, the information minister does not speak for himself. He speaks for government. The SA media does not speak for himself. He speaks for the president. The foreign affairs minister who spoke earlier does not speak for himself. He speaks for the president.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Adesina. It's actually a bit of a worrying one, but let's speak about the Africa Free Trade Continental Area Agreement, because the two biggest economies now are at some level of loggerheads with each other, that is South Africa and Nigeria, as we know, over these xenophobic attacks. How do you think, or how is the AFCTA going to be affected by these recent developments, if at all? Or is this a situation that the presidency is currently doing everything that it can to avoid, sir?
The AFCTA is just beginning. It has not even taken off. In a manner of speaking, it was just in Niamey last month that the final ratification came. So it's yet to even take off. So what is happening between Nigeria and South Africa may not be a threat to the AFCTA.
Well, Femi, you were with the president in Yokohama, Japan. And then, of course, opinion has been mixed about, what Nigeria gained or didn't gain from attending that particular international conference. I recall that the PDP said that the president only managed to come home with promissory notes. But you were there on the ground, What's your own assessment? What are the major takeaways in terms of, the president, attending that international conference?
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that the PDP is paranoid to the point of hallucination now. Anything that has to do with government, anything that has to do with the president must be wrong. And that's the way they carry on. It's not the way to do it. It's not the way to do it. Now, directly to your question, what were the gains of TICAD 7? Many. Remember, TICAD is for Africa. There was a bouquet of promises for Africa. But specifically about our country, what were the low-hanging fruits that we could pluck? Very important to note that it was a conference. It was not a buying and selling session, as the PDP will have us believe. It was not like going to the market and you come back and you say, I took goods worth 50,000 naira and I sold all, I made a gain of 10,000 naira and all that. That's a very simplistic and pedestrian way to look at it, the way the PDP has said. But then, in TICAD, what happened? We had the opportunity to unfold what Nigeria has to the world, not just to Africa, but to Japan particularly, because the intention is to attract investment. So now the president unfolded what Nigeria has to offer, areas in which investors could come in. And you will notice that a number of meetings followed immediately. The Japan International Bank met with our president and said it would be willing to spend a lot of money to assist Japanese companies in Nigeria in diverse areas of investment. That is one thing that came to us immediately. Toyota also met with the president, and they also unfolded what they could do, not just in the areas of car manufacturing or setting up of assembly plants. They said they want to set up an international diagnostic center in collaboration with Siemens of Germany, which will foreclose anybody having to go abroad for diagnostics facilities again. That's also something coming to Nigeria. Of course, you have the memorandum of understanding that was signed with the European Union, 50 million euros. That's an immediate gain. And then when the president met with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he promised to give $300,000 to the Defense College and also about 12 million yen to our health sector in Nigeria. There was a lot. There was a lot. Apart from all this, it was an opportunity to meet and talk with many other African leaders. The president met with the Prime Minister of Algeria, who spoke about Algeria and Nigeria collaborating to get a gas pipeline from Africa to Europe. That's very significant. So anybody that thinks that kind of conference is buying and selling does not even know what he's talking about.
Well, that certainly sounds like a good outing for the president. I have two questions now. First, who is this special envoy? The name still has not been disclosed. And secondly, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, well, speaking on behalf of the president, like you just said, referred to a cooperation between South African and Nigerian forces in South Africa. Do you know at this time what form that would take? And how can we guarantee the safety of our security officers in such a hostile terrain, especially when South African police officers claim unconvincingly that they are helpless while looters loot and murderers run on a rampage?
Thank you. The special envoy is expected to arrive South Africa latest tomorrow. That means it could even be today. So it's not unlikely that by the end of today or early tomorrow, you will know who the special envoy is. But for now, government has decided to still keep the name close to its chest. I know the person, I know the name, but since government is saying, let the name be kept under wraps for now, let's leave it that way. But later today, latest tomorrow, you will get to know who the person is. The second leg of your question, the special forces, I think is just the beginning. At this point, I'm not privy to that arrangement. It's going to be a security thing, and the relevant agencies will brief Nigeria. Let's not forget that it's not on our soil. So we may not have total control of that. It's going to have to be in collaboration with the South African government.
Okay, Mr. Adesina. Now, I'd like to take us to something topical that's been in the newspapers for a few days and ask for your clarification on this particular matter. According to certain media outlets, there are echoes coming from the presidency with regards to the P&ID case, stating that there are considerations to tap into UK assets such as Bonga Southwest and put these assets up for sale as a response to the problem that we have at hand. Now, of course, we don't know if this is true or false, but hopefully you'll be able to clarify that for us. Is this a discussion that's currently going on? And if the presidency is looking at these UK assets to respond to this huge and terrible judgment that we have in front of us, then what is the outcome of this going to be in terms of our relationship with the UK and its allies?
Thank you. You know, there are some things that the presidency will not weigh in on, at least publicly, until we get to the conclusion of those things. The P&ID, you have not heard a word from the presidency because it's being handled by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. It's being handled by the Minister of Information and Culture. The Central Bank is involved. Many stakeholders are involved and have been speaking on it. The presidency is part of it from the background for now until we get to a point when the presidency will weigh in publicly. So let's leave it that way for now.
Well, Femi, the UN Special Rapporteur for Extrajudicial Summary and Arbitrary Execution, Ms. Kalamad, was in Nigeria recently on a country visit. And she says she'll present her final report to the United Nations Human Rights Council in June 2020. But from her preliminary findings, she accuses security agencies in Nigeria of an accountability crisis. And, you know, she also accuses the authorities of undermining the independence of the judiciary and of this administration in particular, not encouraging access to justice. And she also noted that, you know, commissions of inquiry, panels of inquiry are set up, but the government has not shown any determination to deal with, you know, security agents who are involved in, you know, summary, arbitrary killing of innocent Nigerians. What's the response of the Nigerian government to this? We'll take a short break, and then we'll return. When we return, you can give your perspective on this question. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. And with us in our Abuja studio is Femi Adesina, Special Advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity. Yeah, Femi, before we went on that commercial break, addressed the points made in the preliminary report by Agnes Callamard, the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings, who is accusing, the administration, the Buhari administration, of tolerating extrajudicial killings and failing to address the accountability crisis that the security agencies seem to display.
Yeah, thank you. You know that these kind of allegations are almost eternal against particularly third world countries. In our country, many administrations in the past have been accused of similar things. But we need to wait till that report is officially presented before there can be a response to it. And when there will be a response, the presidency will not be the first level of response. In this kind of things, the presidency actually should be the last level of response. Because when the allegations are unfolded, it's not unlikely that the president himself is going to call agencies mentioned and ask for their defense. Again, we need to recognize and understand that Nigeria is not living in the best of times now because of security challenges that face the country. Therefore, a number of things may happen, but it does not mean that they are being tolerated. We have even seen the different forces, the police, the military, dealing with those kind of things. We have the Defense Headquarters panel that was set up on the Taraba killings, and we have different other kinds of steps that have been taken to ensure that we do not brook extrajudicial killings. So it is something that is being looked at, but like I said earlier, when that report is officially presented, I think there will also be official responses from different levels in Nigeria.
Why has today's Federal Executive Council meeting been cancelled?
Well, it's been explained. The ministers came in. They were inaugurated 2 weeks ago. And the memos that are pending were not generated by these ministers. They were memos that were generated by the last class of ministers who exited in May. So it's only natural that you give the new ministers opportunity to study those memos, look at the ones they want to represent, and when they do represent them, which most likely could be next week, I'm not being emphatic, but it could be, then the council meeting will be convened and they will be considered. But it would not be quite fair to saddle the new ministers with what they have not taken time to study and understand.
Given that 1/3 of the cabinet are returning ministers, and given that they have had 2 weeks, they were inaugurated on August 21st, the meeting, I don't think, should have been cancelled. Again, they haven't sat, the Federal Executive Council has not sat since August 21st.
No. You see, there is no law. There is no law that prescribes that the Federal Executive Council should sit every week.
That's correct.
Don't. Under President Yaradua, you remember they even...
Mr. Adesina, come on. This is the second term. This is President Buhari's second term. His brand new cabinet, they have not sat. He won an election in February. He was inaugurated in May. I beg your pardon.
You asked the question because you wanted an answer.
I do.
So now there is no law that says Federal Executive Council must sit every week. I dare you to bring the law if it exists.
It doesn't.
But we know that, yes, often the council sits every week. Under President Yaradua, it sat fortnightly. The thing is that the Federal Executive Council must sit as often as possible, as long as there are issues to discuss. But at times, these things are flexible because it is seen that The ministers must get to understand what is happening. They were inaugurated exactly 2 weeks ago today. 2 weeks is not too long a time for them to then, for us to then begin to panic that something was amiss. Nothing absolutely is amiss. And when the council begins to sit, it's going to be something that will not be interrupted again.
Okay, Mr. Adesina, I'd like to take us back to TICAD for a second, because while the conference was ongoing and the president, yourself, etc., were over there, I had sort of a light bulb moment thinking about the ways in which we're generating revenue and investments in the country. Now, in 2018, it was reported that we brought in about $38 billion from diaspora remittances, so transfers or money being sent into Nigeria from the diaspora, which is more than we generated from oil. This is a view that was also echoed by Andrew Nevin of PwC when he came on this show last week. And I started to think about the fact that we don't even look to Nigerians living in the diaspora that could actually be the ones investing back into the country if they were given certain assurances. Because imagine if the money being sent through diaspora remittances was actually investment money coming in from Nigerians that can actually afford to invest back in their country. That also frees us from a lot of imperialist institutions too, because we too are then also loaning from ourselves, investing into ourselves, and doing a lot more ourselves. Is this a viewpoint that the presidency is actually trying to harness and leverage on? Because it's something that I think we're really missing out on here, especially if we're generating more money from diaspora remittances than we are from oil.
Thank you. Do you also know that there is now what is called a Diaspora Commission?
Hello, Femi, can you hear us?
Anywhere the president goes, he meets with Nigerians. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go on.
Okay. Anywhere the president goes, he meets with Nigerians in diaspora. Just last week in Japan, he met with Nigerians in diaspora. In almost every country he goes. In fact, I've heard him say that anywhere he is going, chairman of the Diaspora Commission must go ahead so that he can arrange a meeting with Nigerians in diaspora, which he will address. So that shows you the value that the administration has placed on Nigerians in diaspora, because it knows their contribution to the economy.
Well, Femi, just another question about the trip to Japan. I see you are relaxed. You must have enjoyed Japan very much. But what are your thoughts on this, romance with the Asian countries? We're very friendly with China. We're now striking a partnership, trying to, engage the Japanese. Do you think that this has implications for our relationship with our Western allies, particularly the United States, which may not be too comfortable, although these things are not often stated so clearly, with Nigeria's romance in particular with China?
Yeah, thank you. Nigeria can use help from any part of the world. Wherever we get it now, we can use it. So much infrastructure deficit in the country, and if you find a part of the world which is saying we will help you grow your economy, we will help you attract investment, we will help you with infrastructure, I think Nigeria will be open to it. Yes, we are doing a lot with China. Japan is also showing more interest in Africa, but there was a paradigm shift in this conference in Yokohama. The target of Japan used to be government aid, but from this last conference, you will see that the private sector is the target now. So Japan is not exactly, again, doing what China is doing. You also have India. There was India-Africa Forum that we also attended in 2015 or 2016. India is also helping Africa. So Africa should accept aid from wherever it can get it. If the West will assist and it's attractive, I'm sure Nigeria will also take it and be grateful.
Absolutely. But what are your thoughts on this data released by NBS that Nigeria's economy has slowed down in the second quarter by 16 base points. We recorded 1.94% GDP growth, which is down from 2.1%. What is the government really doing to turn around and invigorate our economy? You also referred to that infrastructure deficit just now. What is the government doing to bridge these gaps?
Yes, that's why government has enunciated what is called the ERGP, Economic Reconstruction and Growth Plan. It's work in progress. At times, yes, it will go up. At times, it can go down. It happens. Every economy is subject to that kind of development. But Nigeria, we need to keep a keen eye on our economy, and I believe that is being done. It may be down this quarter. Another quarter, it will get better. There were quarters in the past, particularly the last 2 quarters, when the Nigerian economy showed a lot of promises. I believe that there's no cause for alarm. There's no need to panic. The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan is to last till 2020. And the target then is to attain, I think, 6 or 7% growth. It's work in progress, and I believe that we will make good showing.
Thank you, Mr. Adesina. But I recall when the ERGP was first presented, one of the greatest stakeholders in Nigeria, Bill Gates, came out, and his viewpoint was that if we're not focusing on the basics of human development, we aren't going to reach our targets. I, as a citizen, I'm not too convinced that we'll get to that 7% by 2020. But as we come back from this break, I'd like you to touch on the government policies. Okay, sir, unfortunately, we have run out of time and we can't take any more, but hopefully we will have another conversation with you soon and we can expand on this. Thank you very much,
Thank you very much, Femi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.